ill-equipped, feel a little vulnerable, as it were, without my violin. It's such a, it's an instrument for conversation, but I didn't want to do that just yet because I think it's important that I never ask you to do something I won't do myself. And that is, can you speak directly to someone about something that you care about? You know? Can you bring the whole room to you? Instruments sometimes make it easy, you know, whether it's a violin or your voice. An instrument can sometimes make it easy. And typically when I'm speaking to a group, I do something performative, right? Play the violin, get your attention, earn your respect, a little moment of being a star, right? And then I start to tell a story. Usually my own story, because I know that for you, you'll make it self-referential. So for example, if I say to you, my name is Daniel, hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good to be. And by cool, I mean hot, and by hot, I mean real, and by real, I mean relevant, and by relevant, I mean a relationship to each one of you. I started playing the violin, it wasn't cool. I wanted it to be cool, but the violin wasn't cool. This was 1975. I was 5 years old. Yes. And I started playing the violin, and along the way, it turned into my violin. And there's a big difference. My violin could do anything. And then I would make these sounds, like a DJ, like a drum kit, like a flute, like a guitar. All of this to tell a story, and hopefully, I think I know you, you're thinking about your own relationship to music, when it began. How old were you when you started singing, started reading music? How old were you when you came into this room, into this group? The first time you sang in a chorus. I'm talking about the first moment. I remember mine. Academic Festival Overture. First time I was in an orchestra, a real orchestra, not just an elementary school orchestra. I was sitting second violin, the last stand, the last chair. Do you know what that means in an orchestra? That means you are the worst player. That's right. Second violin, way in the back, way back there. I was 9 years old. It was the Broward County Community College Orchestra. Broward County Community College Youth Orchestra. And it was a community college. There were people in there who were 18 years old, maybe 16, 17 years old. Certainly 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. Charles Noble was the conductor. And I was 10 years old, 5th grade. I had a big afro, full-size instrument, every Sunday around noon, just after church. And it was going to be the first rehearsal. It was Brahms, I think you sang Brahms tonight, his Academic Festival Overture. You should check it out. It went something like, funky. Funky! I was 10 years old. I thought, my God, this is like, I get this. I practice my heart out. So the tips of my fingers turned black from the fingerboard of that violin. Practice, practice. Oh, I wanted to get it right. And we went to church. My father drove me to BCC. That's what we call it, Broward Community College. BCC. BCC. And my father, big man, 285. We walked, we had a promenade through the campus, through some nondescript door, into a room. It opened up massive and wide, kind of like this, but maybe 5 times bigger. All the instruments, you entered through the back. I found my seat, my folder, my name on it even. And that chair, to me, it was a throne. It wasn't the back of the second violin section. It was everything. It was everything. I was so proud of myself, so happy to be there. It was so important. In fact, there was nothing more important. And I sat down, and I remember Mr. Noble came in. He looked like a god. He looked like a god. He got up on that podium, you know, and he opened up a big barrel chest, and the baton seemed small in his hand, and he said, you know, let us begin. I remember that because it reminded me of church. Let us begin. And he brought his hands up, and Oh my God, it sounded like the record I was listening to. This was my first time in an orchestra. I heard the horns, and the timpani, and the little percussion instruments, and the pizzicato, and all these things happening, and it was 100 people, maybe more, all making music together. It was miraculous. Couldn't believe it. 2 hours wasn't long enough. It was over. Oh, went home, and when you're 10 years old, I'm telling my parents about it. Oh, I want to do this forever. It was so inspiring, so inspiring. You know, black, white, Republican, Democrat, went out the window. 10 years old, went out the window. We were all one thing. It was then, as it is now, the last bastion of democracy. You know, it didn't matter that you couldn't actually hear me. I was being heard. Second week. Put on a little tie, clip on. Did my afro the best I could, a little afro sheen. You know, black plastic shoes. Practiced even more. I told my father, I know where it is. It's a big deal when you're 10 years old. Do you remember? Right? I know where it is. Made my way through that campus. There's the door. Went in there, roused up my bow, straightened my tie. Practiced a lot. Ready. Ready. I didn't want, you know, this meant everything to me. Dr. Noble came in. Dr. Noble took his stand. He was wearing a tie too. I remember that. Good afternoon. Academic Festival Overture of Life, Johannes Brahms. Let us begin. Oh, brought my instrument up early, before everybody else. And I held it up high, not 90 degrees, even higher. Ah! You back there. Stand up. What's your name? Danny. Danny what? Danny Roumain. Apologize. I said, I'm sorry. No, louder so we can all hear you. I started crying. It's your mistake. You made that mistake. You disrupted us. Apologize to us. I started shaking. Vulnerable. I said, I'm sorry. Louder so we can all hear you. I'm sorry. Okay, now sit down. Don't make that mistake twice. Never forgot that. I still have a hard time getting over it. Because then and now, that was an opportunity. Even then, as a 10-year-old boy, you know, I knew what he should have said. I knew what he should have said. Hey, that's okay. What's your name? Danny, I'm glad you're here. How old are you? 10 years old. Show me 20. Show me 20. That's okay. That's not your mistake. That's not how the audience hears it. That's our mistake. Okay, let's not make the same mistake again, but that's our mistake. I'm glad you're here. Now, that's what he should have said. And I tell you, there's going to be times in your life where you're going to be confronted in a moment with a choice. Anger, humiliation, and then you're going to have to really, really discern and determine for yourself your relationship to your art, your music making, your singing. It's not his. It's not any of your parents. That's my violin. Now that was my moment. Actually, it was more his. I have no idea where Dr. Noble is. But if he was here today, I would say to him, you hurt me, and you could have ended my career in music, just in that moment. You know, at 10 years old, I remember leaving there feeling insignificant, smaller than I was. I remember going home, and in my mind I said, I hate the violin. I hate the orchestra even more. I hate Dr. Noble. But I was lucky. Teachers like this man, and you are surrounded by love. That's the village, right? I was lucky. At that moment, I hang on to it. Because I always say if I'm in front of someone, anyone, where it matters, I can say to them, that's not your mistake, that's not it. That's our mistake. Let's not make the same mistake twice. We're always going to make mistakes. You know? That's a good confrontation. So, I share this story with you because I think stories and storytelling are fundamental. And they're a way to connect ideas. Not in an abstract way, but in an artful way. You know? I heard you sing in 3, 4, maybe 5 different languages tonight. You know, a word in a different language tells a story. Umbrella. Parapluie. Right? You know that? My French is not very good. Umbrella. Parapluie. Now, if you go in the mountains of Haiti, right, the people there might say, Vumka. Now, that's Creole. Okay? That tells you a lot, right? Vumka. You get it? Vumka. Now, that's going to tell you a lot about the Haitian people. In a way that French, English, a translation will not. That's a story. There's a story in there. When I was growing up, my mother used to say things in Creole that were very potent. Oh! It's a very... Oh! She would say in Creole, I'm going to hit you so hard, you're going to ask me if I'm your mother. But in Creole, very potent. Oh, I see. I can see, right. I wish, and you know, it's... You've got me thinking about this notion of storytelling, the myth. And my brain, the way it works, I start to think about, okay, you're younger than I am. You need to know your ages. Who's 10? 11? 12? Okay, 13. 14. 15. 16. 17. Do I keep going?
Yes.
18. All right. 19. What do we share in common? So I started thinking about, well, what are the things I want to talk about? Because we don't, our lives intersect in a way. You know, your life intersects with adults. Well, you're young adults, so forgive me. Your life intersects with your parents. Your life intersects with guardians, keepers of the flame. Right? But we don't share in that, right? Of course not. So how can we, as a performer, composer to a chorus, how can I create something and talk about things that I think we might both want to talk about? It's like a frame. See this beautiful chalkboard, and you're right in the middle of it. Yes. No, I love it. Yes. That tells a story, right? I love that. But it's like framing ideas. So I started to think about, okay, what are the things that are important to me? This notion of, and it started with this notion of unconditional love. Okay, I'm big on words. So if there's unconditional love, that means that there's conditional love, right? So conditional love is what? What do you think conditional love is? Actually, that's a good place to start. What do you think? What's conditional love? Yes?
That a person can only love you if, like, you're a certain way.
Whoa! Everybody hear that? Can you say that one more time?
That a person can only love you if you're a certain way.
I agree with that. What else? Yes?
Well, I kind of think of it as like if someone has a cookie and you want that cookie and then they give you the cookie and you're like, oh my God, I love you. You wouldn't have said that if they didn't give you the cookie.
Interesting. So that is the condition by which one will receive love. Excellent. What else? Well, what's unconditional love? Oh, wait. Okay, conditional. Yes, go ahead.
You have to, like, meet requirements and, like,
Meet requirements and expectations. Yes. Where are the young men? Come on, young men. Answer some of these questions.
We're too cool.
It's what?
We're too cool.
You're too cool. Oh.
No, not that way.
I understand. Well, if you were too cool, what is unconditional love? Young men, what is unconditional love? Yes.
Loving someone regardless of whether they do something wrong.
I agree with that. That's right. There is no condition by which I will not love you. Yes.
No limits.
No limits. No limits to my love for you. Yes. Yes. Now, if we were to keep going, but I won't tonight, I would say to you, by show of your hands, but don't. Are there people in your life who love you conditionally? Are there people in your life who love you unconditionally? Are there people in your life who think that they love you unconditionally, but you know they love you conditionally, so on and so forth. So, no, you don't have to. But what I'm getting at is this notion of, that's one thing I wanted to talk about, you know? And the reason I'm saying it to you this way is that as a composer, who's now 42, I'm wanting to be as authentic in my work as possible. Get away from the fat, the excess, you know, and really pare down the idea. So I wanted to talk about unconditional love. I wanted to talk about race. Yeah? You know what I mean? Race. My son is half black and half white. Half Catholic, half Jewish. I think about his DNA. What responsibility do I have as his father towards trying to get him to understand his race? Right? I wanted to talk about crush. Having a crush on someone. Not love. Crush. There's a difference, right? Crush is what do you think a crush is? What's the difference between crush and love? What do you think?
Young men.
Really put young men on the spot there.
They're not going to answer.
Okay.
Don't go there.
Uncertainty. What do you mean by that? Uncertainty.
You don't really know how you feel.
A crush? Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I like that. So a love is a certain love. A crush is an uncertain. Ooh, I like that a lot. Woo! I'm sorry, you just got chills down my spine. I do a lot of work with, I'm going to throw out some names too, and I want to make sure we get to you because we have to end at 7 o'clock. And I want to make sure this is a conversation from the parents as well. Because we need you. We need you. But I love that. I was thinking about Bill T. Jones, a great dancer, choreographer, how he would take that notion of certainty and uncertainty. Love, crush. You know? Yes?
It's an admiration of superficial features.
Wow, man, wow. That could be the title of a string quartet. The admiration, no, I like that though. The admiration of superficial features of someone. Crush. Wow. Okay. Yes, sir.
Love is when your heart beats and you just stumble on your table and you go out of the way and do that person.
Right. Oh, yes. Right. And race relations. I wanted to talk about, I wanted to think about the notion of a shared story, you know, and how I could take that story and change it, you know, remix it, reimagine it. There's a woman and she's a strong woman. And she goes out into the woods and she gets lost and she's found. And she's found by this man. And he takes her. And they hunt down this man. And they take him. And they shoot him down. But she still loves him. You know? It's almost as though, how could you take the story of King Kong and create a tweet out of it? You know? How could you take your own biography? If you had to tweet yourself, 140 characters, every single symbol counts, what would you do? A tweetable biography. I kind of love that notion. I love that notion of taking something big and making it very, very, very small. So I decided to take the story of King Kong and reimagine it. Because King Kong, I think, ultimately is about unconditional love. You know, you don't have to agree or not, it's fine. But I'm going to take the story, I wanted to take the story of King Kong and reimagine it so that we have a young man. He's disfigured. So his mother named him King. So that every time someone would call his name, he would be empowered. Right? His mother named him King. And he's tough. He's a tough kid. He's disfigured. Getting into trouble, doing things he's not supposed to do. But one day he falls in love. I think it's his teacher. I'm not sure. But he has this kind of, he calls it love. We know it's a crush. You know? And to take the story of King Kong and to transform it into a song, a pas de deux. There'll be got a text by Mark Bermuthi Joseph, who is already working on taking the story of King Kong and stripping it down into A Boy Called King. And that's the essential storyline. There'll be two dancers, a man and a woman. Right? There'll be two musicians. I think a 61 key keyboard with local sound. That means the sound comes out of a small amplifier. I think that's the key. A small amplifier. Viola. And already in my mind, I'm imagining all of you this way. So viola's over there on a platform. The keyboardist is over there, standing up, 80s style. Right? No, you guys were born in the 90s. So, right? Hold on, some of you in 2000. Don't say it, please. Everybody, yeah, 12 years old. Yeah, what year were you born?
2000.
Woo! Right? Not you, right? Oh, Lord. My back hurts. Yes. So in the 1980s, there used to be these, like, every band had a keyboard player, and they had these keyboard stands. Very 80s. But standing up is the point. Viola. Why? Because violin is not right for this group. I think we need something darker hued, lower in register. And the two dancers. Right? So, and that's the piece. Now, we're not going to take the whole story of King Kong. It's a poem. It's a poem, bits and pieces. But if you know the story of King Kong, you'll see how this story plays its part, has its role. Right? And I'll tell you something else that I'm thinking about, then I want to hear back from you, because I think this is, well, what's the word? Maybe provocative, I hope. Right? I'll tell you one thing that you've already influenced me and where my mind is going. I talked about Bill T. Jones. Years ago, Bill T. Jones did a piece called The Table Project. A massive table was built, I mean as big as this room, with massive chairs. The curtain goes up, and a Schubert trio is playing the middle movement of a Schubert trio. Sorry, violin, viola, violin, cello, and piano. I was playing the violin. It was about 6 minutes long. We started playing music, and out come a dozen 6 to 7-year-old girls dressed all in white. And they're doing this choreography, up and down the table, chasing each other all around. It seems almost made up, right? And then they leave, curtain down. Curtain comes up again. The Schubert begins to play. Out comes 12, 50 to 70-year-old women, dressed in white, doing the same choreography. But it's different. They leave, curtain down. Curtain comes up. Out come a dozen 80 to 90-year-old men, dressed all in white, doing the same choreography. They leave, curtain down, bows. It was a very interesting piece, powerful, because first movement, it seemed ridiculous, almost. Second movement, a little more serious. And by the third movement, wow. Why it worked is because of repetition. There was a song by Prince called The Joy of Repetition. So my brain's just going to go all over the place. But I'm a product of playlists and iPods and iPads and MTV too. So, but check all this stuff out. So Bill T. Jones, The Joy of Repetition, Academic Festival Overture. The reason it worked, I think that piece worked, and the reason it was so powerful is because there was repetition. The power of repetition is familiarity. It's a very powerful thing. If I stand up here and go, come on, come on, the minute I do that again, there's something almost comforting about it. Come on, doesn't matter where I am. Come on, yes, come on, even if I break it apart. Come on. Something really familiar, It's strange, but familiar. And that's my job, to be a little bit cryptic. Let's not use the word strange. We'll say it's a composer's response, right? So what I'm thinking about in this piece is something that's maybe about 6 minutes long, essentially, right? It's a piece that's about 6 minutes long. The first time you sing it, maybe in French. Second time, same music, Creole, Haitian Creole.
and it'll be phonetic. It won't be hard because I know that I'm already getting a sense of it. And then that last time in English. You know, that's what I'm already thinking about. Or the way my brain works, maybe it's something that's even shorter because that fourth time, I can divide you up, all 3 languages at once. You know, that story. You know? But that's one way your work tonight is already starting to influence me. Because there's something wonderful about having a sense of what you're saying, but not knowing what you're saying. And the great thing about a story like King Kong is it's already out there. Most people know the essential storyline. You know? It's almost that, you know, you could say anything, you could start to speak in one language, and the minute you say King Kong, you know what's going on, you know what I mean? And then you only need a few words, right? Airplane, you know what I mean, right? So, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. What do you think? What are your concerns? What are your questions? What are your comments? Your education is an aggressive act. What do you think? Yes?
I love the idea of doing it in like different languages.
Uh-huh.
Creole, English,
Yes. I like that as well. I wrote a piece called Darwin's Meditation for the People of Lincoln. It's a big piece. Chamber orchestra, large video screen, solo piano, solo violin, an actor, and a solo singer who sings in Creole. Emily Michel, actually, a great Haitian singer.
Yeah, my mom was.
Oh, you know Emily Michel? Okay, wonderful. She played the role. You can check out the video online. I remember putting the score together, and when I was setting Emmeline's songs, I was inputting, you know, her words in Creole. And I love that. Sing those Creole words against an orchestra, in an orchestral score. So the same thing here. I almost think it's important that there's at least a moment, and this could change, but I think it's important that I set words in Creole. Not French, but in Creole. Is that all right? I think you're up to the task. I don't speak Creole. I understand it very well. But in a way, again, that's a loss for me. So maybe we can help each other find something. You know? Be wonderful. Yes, other questions, other comments? All right, so let's jump to what I think is the most provocative thought of this. I really want to talk about a young man, right? And this is all going to be poetic. A young man who has a crush on his teacher. Yeah, King Kong. She was his teacher, right? Don't we agree? In every story that I know, every iteration of King Kong, she is his teacher, as much as he is hers. But she's really his teacher, right? Even in the latest Hollywood movie, right? She's teaching him so much. But what do you think about that? Now's the time. What do you think about that? Is that something that we dare address? Is this something that happens? Do young people have crushes? I did. I had a crush on my teacher. I remember Mrs. Griffiths. Yeah, she was the orchestra teacher. I could see her right now. Oh, long blonde hair. Every time she played that violin, I fell in love. I fell in love every day. Oh, substitute, no. I was like, no. Miss Griffiths. Oh, and the way she played that, she could play all the instruments, violin, viola, cello. Sometimes I would make mistakes, or sometimes I don't understand this, just so she could come close to me. Oh, yeah. I loved everything about her. Everything about her. I wrote letters to her that I kept to myself. Yes. Come on. Yes. Did any of you have a crush on a teacher? Yes. Okay. I know. Yes. I remember having a crush on my elementary school teacher. Yes. Oh, I loved her. It's funny. I'm saying crush, but at that time, I loved her. So yeah, I think this is something, to appropriately address. What do you think? Yeah? Okay. And then finally, race relations. What do you think I mean by that? Such a different time now. Race relations. What is race now to you? Does it even matter? It's a good question. Does it matter? Does being black or white or something else matter anymore? Yeah.
Not really.
Not really?
Not in my eyes.
Not in your eyes? And what about your friends' eyes?
They don't see any
Right.
difference either.
Right.
I think it does matter because it's a piece of identity. And I mean, I don't think it holds any negative connotation at all, but
Right.
it definitely is a piece of identity, and I think it does matter in that way.
Sure. What do you think? Yes.
I would agree with Ella.
Who's Ella? Okay, yes.
I think it's certainly a part of your identity, and I think that it's something that has a negative connotations, just not maybe where we are. And I think that
What
it's-
has negative connotations?
that looking at different races has negative connotations,
Oh,
no
I
matter
see.
who you are.
Sure.
So, in different areas, and I think that we need to bring that to light, but also understand and respect who we are and where we come from and how that has shaped who we are.
Sure. Sometimes I think to myself, what if the story of King Kong, what if King Kong was a polar bear? You know, instead of a gigantic gorilla. What if he was a polar bear? Would it change? You know what I'm getting at? You know, the fact that he is this big gorilla has a certain connotation, right? And I get it. I understand that. You know? But I want to take that and make it my own. Because ultimately, I think that story is about unconditional love, right? That's what it's trying to get to. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what you look like. That's what it's trying to get to. You know, that's where the poem can come in. I think I saw. Yes.
Yeah, I just like kind of expand upon that. Like if say he was a polar bear instead of a gorilla, and our perceptions changed based on that, it
Sure.
kind of shows like what's kind of been in like kind of a part of our society for so long. And even though like, for example, racism, at this point we're very far from where we were, say like 50 or 60 years ago. It's still a part of our history, and it's something that we can't just ignore.
Yes. Oh, wow. I agree with you. Amazing. We're out of time, right? Okay, so, listen. I look at you, I see the world I would like to live in. This isn't the world as it is, but this is the world I would like to live in. I have an apartment in Harlem, in New York City. I have a townhouse in Norwood, near Dover, about 30 minutes or so from here. They couldn't be more different, right? They couldn't be more different. And I am oscillating between two different worlds all the time. I have my PhD from the University of Michigan. I hang out on the corner of Harlem. I know when to speak the King's English, and I know when not to. Right? I understand Boston to a point. To a point. To a point. That's right. To a point. That's a point. To a point. See? That's interesting right there. That's something that's right. Yeah. Okay. But I understand New York City and Harlem much better, and I'm from Miami. You know? Yeah, I understand. You know? And being right. So, as a composer working with all of you, I want to continue this conversation, and I want to write a piece that can reflect our values. When I look at you singing together, making music together, sometimes in different languages, in different tempos, different effects, that's the world that I want to live in. You know, there's something really powerful and wonderful about that. And it's fleeting, because when you get older, you may not be in a chorus. You may be working all the time. You may not be standing or sitting side by side with someone and singing and daring and hoping and dreaming. And that's what your performances are. It's that last little bit of magic for so many people. And I think that past the story and past the words, past even the sounds, it's that residue of each one of you. So I want to find a way in this piece, however fleeting, to bring out literally each one of your voices. Maybe there's a moment where we speak the text, you know? Maybe it's as simple as that. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. We're going to find out together, okay? Well, that was my pitch. I hope I sold you. That's it. See you next time.